Welcome to Lume Web3 podcast series, where we dive into the Web3 technologies, culture, and anything that relates to the creative industries. I'm your host, Sointu, and if you are crypto native or just Web3 curious, you are in the right place. And our 4-episode series will explore how Web3 will bring new business models, revenues, help you create stronger communities, more sustainable and inclusive internet, but most of all, help you guys in the creative industries, the doers, the thinkers, to think the next steps and future. And we also might be the world's first and only podcast that talks toilets. So you've been warned. Watch out. And you might need to listen all the 4 episodes to see and hear what is that about. But luckily, we are not here alone. I have 2 amazing legends here with me. Welcome, Johanna Eiramo, Director of the Finnish National Gallery's digital program.
Thank you.
You are the absolute leader in just bringing the digital into physical, and we're really, really glad to have you here.
Thanks.
Also, I know that you are a fan of those bold, never been seen before projects.
I do like problems to solve, yes.
And you are good at it. And yeah, we'll hear more about those projects today.
Fantastic.
Great to have you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. Also, you might be a secret crypto holder, millionaire, who knows? I've heard that you've doubled your assets, which is nice, but...
Yeah. You know, I might be a millionaire and there will be signs, but I don't think you see the signs yet. But you never know how many zeros are.
Yes, behind the scenes is okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll welcome you, Johanna.
Thanks so much.
Then we have Heikki Aura, senior lead at Sitra, the absolute genius, anything related to blockchain, AI, data economy, anything that we'll be talking today, sustainability, business models. You know it all, so amazing to have you. But also a undercover NFT artist.
Yeah.
So I think that the piece might be still out there for sale. So watch out. Let's see if it goes during the podcast. But welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the very kind words. And yes, indeed, that's my kind of a special secret of being a very early NFT artist by kind of a little bit by accident. I don't know if we're going to come to this later or want me to elaborate, but 2020, when the NFTs kind of took off during the pandemic, and I was like very much confused that what are these all about? Why are people going crazy with these NFTs? And then I was okay. Well, I really have to understand it, and the best way to do it usually is to try it yourself. So I went all the way to install the first my crypto wallet MetaMask, and then trying to get some money into there through my credit card, and then trying to find a good kind of a photo that I have took, and then mint it to turn it to the kind of Web3 format, and then put it to the sale. And I actually managed to do this. But then I thought that I can actually do 20 maybe of these. But of course, the fees to do that was very high by then. So I managed to only do 1. And then it's out there. And nobody has ever bought it. And I've kind of been very sad about it. But then now I actually checked. I actually had this kind of setting that it's not for sale. So no wonder nobody has bought it. But now actually I'm not going to change it because it's getting more rare. So I'm just going to maybe next 5 years, I'm still going to keep it like not for sale.
So to increase the value a little bit, yes,
it's a super rare already.
It's a super rare. It's a super rare, but also it's like I don't want to actually give the ownership now to somebody else. At least at the moment. But
now you know how
let's
artists
get back
feel.
in 5 years. I might reconsider. Or maybe in the audience somebody is willing to really invest, but we can talk about it.
And you will become a millionaire as well.
That's maybe my chance, because I'm not.
But great lessons from just how do you learn new technology, trying yourself, I think is the best way. Just get out there and
For
do
sure.
it.
Absolutely.
That's a good story. Well, let's dive in. We did already, but maybe to the topic of this first episode, business models and why Web3 is related and what will it bring to the table. But maybe first, Johanna, what's the latest like hugely inspirational Web3 project you've heard of that made you go, okay, this is really cool?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely in the culture sector here, and especially the art sector. I visited the Serpentine Galleries in London just before Christmas, and they had a piece out called The Call by Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst. And it's about teaching an AI how to create more choral music. And that's like a medieval kind of chorus music. But they've created a DAO around it, a decentralized automized organization. And the people who are who teach the AI to create these new music are also a part of the collective copyright. And if I assume that if any money is being made, they might be a part of that too. But they all are a part of the copyright. And I think that's a really beautiful way of creating. The artwork itself is sublime, but I think the idea behind it, the collective ownership, is just beautiful to be honest.
It's amazing use case and example. What would you say is the main key takeaway to learn from that for other artists maybe?
Well, first of all, thinking outside of the box is like a prerequisite, and you kind of have to not think about a box at all. Yeah. The idea of doing something collectively is beautiful and important, but you still have to keep to something that you know and love. It has to be a passion project in the beginning. Now, there are tons of industrial purposes for blockchain technology, but in the art instance, you don't try to create something that isn't you. I think that's that. And Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst have several of these use cases where they've done something pretty spectacular, and they're already making good money from it. So it's also, but I think they're artists first. So let's. Yes.
But even artists need money.
Yes, so well, this is true. Very much so. Very much so. Yeah.
Good case. Thanks for sharing that. I think we will collect all these examples and pay to the audience after this, so you can check them out later. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a ton of good videos and good interviews from the artists about what they've done. But it's really, really interesting and kind of like heartwarming type of I like that.
Love it.
Yeah.
What about Heikki? Because you've had that, you've researched this topic like most probably in Finland, I would say. Why do you think the creative industry and creators themselves are the perfect audience to use and utilize Web3 technology?
Yeah, first, perhaps not most, but definitely being kind of keeping an eye on what's happening there. And what I would say is like I'm very fascinated by this overall development of more and more tools being available that anybody can become a more creative person. I don't want to say especially perhaps artist. Of course, we can all be an artist to a degree, but we can all express our creativity in many new ways. It's of course, it could be NFT related, blockchain related, but the technologies underlying doesn't matter so much. Or it could be now, of course, we're seeing a lot of AI-driven art being created. As the time of recording, the ChatGPT image version has been just released, and I've been kind of testing that out myself, doing some infographics, some creative layouts of all kind of things, and it's super fascinating. And of course, I think this development has been taking place many years now. But what I would say that it's still like the best is yet to come. What I would like to see, of course, it's the typical first phase is that people get very excited because the threshold is a lot lower, and then we get kind of flooded with not that great content, and I think that's of course happened a little bit with the first NFT mania with the, and of course, when there's money involved, people get greedy as well. So I'm actually glad that kind of hype is gone, and I think we will start to see now the kind of the better use cases emerging. Like Johanna mentioned, some really great artists already on board. I overall think that the digital art will be huge going forward, and we can discuss that later. But just thinking like that, the way we consume or create art is definitely changing because there's elements of communities, DAOs. So it's not just that we produce art and then it's maybe in the museum wall, but there's so many ways that the audience can be part of the experience as well. Galleries, all this is changing. We don't know how it's going to play out, but it's very very fascinating times.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said. Like now, the speculation part of the industry has faded out, which is good. And now the true value creation maybe is kind of birthing out. So that's nice.
Absolutely. And what I think is also that in this new world, if we talk about let's do digital art, and it's of course we can easily make it available. But I think the same underlying principles do still matter, that the quality, the kind of how good your idea is, your creativity level, that will kind of prevail. So I think, and we're starting to see that the first experimental phase, it's always great, but then we start to see what are the kind of the best use cases, the best type of forms of art, and frankly, not everybody's going to be that great, and that's the way it should go.
Yeah, a lot of I think it's sort of Web3 art-based things are much more about the community and much more kind of like about people who share your weird type of thing. I'll take another example. Alejandro Cartagena, who's I think a Mexican artist, had this great kind of surrealist visual set of I think it was the Nice Aunties. I can check it later, and people just love it because it's little aunties doing weird stuff, and you definitely should check it out. And it's kind of like, if you're into that kind of weird, then you kind of follow him and you like this stuff and you might purchase some stuff, and you're a part of a club that shared. You're weird. I'm repeating that, and those are the kinds of communities and that might go on forward to creating something new. You're kind of like, oh, we both like the same puppy pictures or images or cats or whatever it is. And then later on, I'm kind of like, oh, Sointu, she liked the cats as well. And I have an idea for, blockchain-based cat whatever. And
I will join your cat club.
And then we'll do something great. So it's in that community, you find like-minded people, and then you might go on to do something else. And I think that's one of the beautiful things of kind of like tokenized communities, if you will.
Yeah.
So would that be kind of a notion of more people, different projects getting access, getting new audiences into the art, not just the traditional art industry that
Plus, I mean, the singular copyrighted piece of art is not the way the digital art world works anymore. There are iterations, there are series. Well, I mean, there are series of physical artworks as well. But the whole idea of how it's monetized or where money works is very different to physical art markets, and there are all kinds of possibilities there. It's probably stuff that we haven't thought about yet at all. But it's a very different. But it's still it's all about your passion and what you like, and then finding like-minded people. And the beautiful thing is that they can be anywhere in the world. Yeah. So your geographical location is no longer an issue. time zones might be an issue, but if you have a computer and Wi-Fi, which of course is not accessible to everyone in the world, but it's still a lot more accessible than just being in a physical location.
Yeah.
One example actually where I might involve myself is the Archive, which is a decentralized museum, and it's this kind of experiment of creating a museum in a decentralized manner by the community. And I joined that like maybe a couple of years ago, and I've been following the progress, and it's very fascinating because it's completely different approaches. First of all, it's the community that chooses the art that will be acquired.
Power to the people.
Power to the people. Power to the people. And also, there's no physical museum, but they will go to different places around the world. It could be in a hospital in Rio de Janeiro, or it could be in a hotel in London. They decide, okay, we're gonna kind of a pop-up style. That okay, we're just gonna be doing the exhibition here. So it's a fascinating kind of experiment of this kind of completely rethinking these, that what the museum experience is, how do you acquire, do you have the physical location, and so I'm very much intrigued to follow that.
Yeah, and the relationship between digital and physical is also very interesting. You can do a ton of stuff on digital, and then we still like to get together and see people face to face and have discussions, but you could have that museum pop up in, Sydney, Australia, or, Karachi, and be just a genuine.
That brings me again to that access to museums, galleries, fine art, you name it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are. And that's pretty nice upside.
For sure.
It's also like, Johanna, of course, knows this much better, but we have, the museums, the physical museums happens to be, we have plenty of here in Helsinki, in the bigger cities typically. And of course, not everybody lives, of course, in these areas. So having these ways to access these digital channels is, of course, one way of democratizing the access to these. Of course, I mean, we still want to have, of course, the physical, the great traditional museums, but this digital will provide a new way to be able to see this art experience. And of course, we don't need to perhaps travel so much, so we can just have a good access to these. So fascinating concept. I don't think we still figured out the right kind of a user interfaces, because it's still like we have a website, we maybe try to squeeze it there somehow. Or we have these initial kind of metaverse experiences where we've been involved as well. And of course, those are very early days, and but that will be figured out at some point. What's the right kind of a format to do it?
I think, the people who are going to figure it out are still in kindergarten maybe, because we need to get out of the making physical digital. It needs to be digital first, digital mindset. And we're still in the museums.
And I think that the extra technology layer that's still developing, all the immersive AR classes, once they are ripe enough for every average user, then that will escalate everything, I think.
I agree.
And we've actually, in our portfolio, we've invested in a few of these startups. So it's already happening. I can see it, but just 1 or 2 more years. And I think we are there. So exciting times.
I hear you.
Yeah, it's so hard for us to kind of rewire our brains of a certain model that has been existed quite a long time. I'm not just in this art space, but in general, when we think where the digital world is evolving. So, I mean, maybe somebody knew, but maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, not many of us would have kind of thought that we would have this type of AI tools available. It would have been like, you're crazy. Like, how can we do that? It's not possible. So, and now it's like starting to be like an everyday use for us. So we can't imagine what's going to happen in 5, especially like longer out. So, but maybe what we can start to do is think that, okay, maybe the model, the kind of a framework I have, which has been based on doing my thing at the moment in this world I live, maybe it's not going to be relevant. Maybe I need to kind of really start to think this in a different way.
That's where the next generation comes in. They think differently than us old people.
We might be old. You're not old.
We're roughly the same age.
We have to work very hard to rewire our brains to the. But if you don't have the kind of a legacy model framework, it's of course much easier to adapt to the new, because that's the framework for you. Yeah. There's no other. You take it.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. It's like that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, let's move on to like a bit more concrete examples. Maybe what are the models that currently we see working for creators, for example? And Johanna, you have an example case of Combine 24.
Sure.
Maybe can you explain what was that project about and how did it help and support these creators?
Sure. So we have the Finnish National Gallery. We have about 27,000 images, copyright-free, released on our website. And we're not the shining star of the industry. Most museums have a ton of copyright-free images, and we wanted to sort of support creatives in using them because they haven't been using them too much. So we created this generative art competition called Combine 24. It was last year. And we asked people to come and take the full dump, the whole data set of 27,000 images and related metadata, and create a generative art piece of art. And by generative, we wanted the artist to actually create the code that then goes into the data of the artworks and create something new that is iterative. Every time you remix it, you get something new. And we wanted to try this on blockchain. So we collaborated with Highlight, which is a growth company in San Francisco, the Bay Area, obviously. And that was like a technological basis that we wanted for the competition. We got just under 200, I think, submissions. 10 finalists were then shown in both in a physical exhibition in Helsinki and then online. But the interesting thing was that when we announced the 10 finalists, they were also at that point able to publish their artwork on Highlight and give it a price. And some artists decided to put, it's all fair priced, but a bigger sum, and some decided to give them for free. Some had enclosed series, 10 artworks or more artworks. But the end game was interesting because the artist who made the most money was the one who created a series that it was easy to collect, and he got his money from the protocol rewards, not from the purchase itself. So the artwork, when we now think that I will purchase an artwork, you think it's a singular, perfect piece of art that I love and I will buy it. Now it's a series, and it's just as beautiful, and it's because there are iterations, so there are 100 different versions of it. But the artist gets a little bit of each and every one of them. And if he has agreed in the code that there is a secondary market value to it, he will get a little bit from the second sale as well, if there's a secondary market. So the whole idea of what you buy, how you own it, and what the value is to you and to the artist is very different. And I think it's fascinating.
And that can bring actually recurring revenue element to the artists, which haven't existed before. That's a totally new thing.
Yeah. It was fascinating. So I was very pleased that some of the artists made real money. And it's exactly how it should be. And I have to iterate that we did not make the museum did not take anything from it in between. So it was the artist and the technology platform who made it possible.
So what made you then initially quite brave project spearheading this? One of the first in the world, I would say.
Yeah.
What made you take the leap and kind of?
Well, I think well, first of all, there's a ton of art, digital art being made already, and a lot of it has nothing to do with Web3, and there's beautiful, beautiful artworks. But I think the organization should support creative industries when they can. And I just saw the possibility to do that, and it seemed that every time we iterated something or discussed it with Highlight, for instance, they were kind of like, "Yeah, let's do it." People were really excited. So I think there was an ongoing excitement in anyone who I told, talked about the project with. So I think, it was sometimes a crazy idea just, actually comes to fruition. And I have a ton of crazy ideas that have not come to anything. So it's just a good example.
But that's why the kind of, you love those ideas that have been never done before. Yeah. You are good at executing them. And that's really a really
And I love the idea of
example.
generative art as well, where the code is really very much in the center of the artwork. It's as essential. It's not AI art. It's artist specifically writes the code, or has someone of what is shown, and then it's kind of like an ethereal piece of art where you remix, and the previous one is lost forever. And it's also kind of like a segment of our time where you can't keep things forever. We don't live forever. So I think that there are all kinds of wonderful things that I love about generative art.
Yeah, me too. And I think there was one scary word, though. You mentioned code.
Yeah.
So Heikki,
algorithm,
smart contracts and codes. What does this mean? It's a bit scary, but you don't actually need to be a developer, or do you? And can you open up the smart contract concept a little bit? Yeah,
maybe actually kind of go a little bit back on the kind of how we have developed in this digital world. I mean, we all, of course, know like how the internet got started, access to information. We could access information anywhere, anytime. And then the next phase, access to kind of media, photos, videos, and very new ways to consume that, right? Start of the social media and all these kind of platforms. Web 1, Web 2, and of course, Web 3 is kind of the next phase. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because everything happens kind of in tandem anyway. But if we look at like what's missing is actually the kind of transfer and the property rights of value. And value, of course, it could be money, or it could be art, or it could be anything. And that's been missing from the kind of design. And there's a kind of a reason, because internet was never thought to be this, like it was supposed to be just the information sharing system. Yeah. So it was never kind of a design into that. And that's something that the Web3 tries to solve through the blockchain technology. And I think it's very critical, like we discussed earlier. I think because there's so many ways we can now be creative, do content. But if we can't attach any ownership rights to that, we don't want to be living in that world. The who's going to get all of that value is going to be few very large American companies that are currently
and some Chinese,
or Chinese. But the ownership, the property right should be with us as users, as artists, as the small people. And I think that's why the blockchain technology is so critical. And of course, a smart contract is part of that. Is like, I think it is what it says, like smart contract is that if certain terms will come to reality, the transfer will happen. And it allows these like a very clever things. It's like, I buy it from you and then I sell it to Sointu you, and you will actually get your share. Exactly. It's which in the kind of a current world would be impossible. Like how would you know that we made this transfer? You wouldn't know. We would just do the paper contract but now it's in the code. So I think it's very clever and super important. Without getting this digital property ownership, we can call it NFT, whatever the technology is or the name, but underlying getting the ownership. And then the ownership can be also there's a creative, like you mentioned, is fractionalizing it. The same piece or the same thing can be owned by lots of different people. So I can just have a tiny fraction of the art. And then we can do different type of things. But I think that's super important. It hasn't really kind of happened yet. Again, we talk about it like the first phase was the typical quite a lot of hype, experimental phase, and then it kind of faded away. But I think underlying this technology is maturing and will be very important going forward. It's almost like critical that we get it right.
There are all kinds of actually kind of interesting tryouts in the world, like the mikä on selain?
Browser.
Okay. So there are all kinds of interesting projects in the world, like the Brave browser, where you actually you gain some sort of tokens from doing some sort of stuff. And I still haven't worked out what I gain from them, but the idea is nice that I can do. I can go to a site and say, I like these kinds of apples, and I get some tokens from it, and then I can use them into something else. So the actions that I do are my gain to be used into something else, and something like that I think will be like the future of blockchain.
And fractionalized NFTs, you Heikki mentioned them, but any good examples of that? I mean, does it mean that I could actually one day own a small piece of Mona Lisa, perhaps? And like, how would that go? Do you see a future for that type of?
Absolutely, and in a kind of a broader scale as well. Today we're kind of focused on the creative world, but we could see the similar type of development in other asset classes like real estate. I could own a fraction of a building, for example. We could digitize the ownership, which we can't. It's not very easy today. But fractionalizing, I think it's super cool in this creative world because again, it's kind of. If we look at the kind of, especially the high-end art market, it's for a very exclusive group of people, the rich people. Yeah. You can't afford, you can't participate really. You can just look at what's happening there in the auction and then that's a lot of money, but just the opportunity to perhaps I could just own a tiny piece of that Mona Lisa or Scherfbeck or somebody, some new artist. I think that's quite cool.
That's really
maybe
cool.
Not just like in terms of hey, I'm gonna make more money or the value be higher, but just the idea that I actually have a tiny fraction of that.
I kind of like the idea of having a fractionalized crowdfunding to be able to purchase. Because the great masters are a finite number of pieces of art. They're not. There are no more because all of the artists have, passed their time. So that is actually an interesting. I'm sure that this has happened. There are all kinds of crowdfundings to purchase artworks, but it would be interesting to do it on a blockchain.
I think there are a few examples of a community pulling their money and then buying something that's really super high valuable that they wouldn't be afford to otherwise. And I think when we were prepping for this episode, you mentioned Gustav Klimt's The Kiss.
Yes, I was actually just thinking about that. With the Belvedere Museum in Austria, they digitized and fractionalized the sublime Kiss by Gustav Klimt, 1907, 1908, I think it was that he made it, and it's kind of like a club token. I think it was published on Valentine's Day in 22, so 14th of February in 22. It was just before the market crashed, so they were exactly on time, and word has it that they actually made money from it, that it's not just a cost, but they've kept going with it's kind of like an idea of a club. So every Valentine's Day, every year they have a special event. They have sort of club benefits or the Kiss benefits for people who've purchased the NFTs. And I don't think they sold all of the 10,000. So there's still some available for people who might want to consider that.
What do you think is the price level? Roughly, do you know?
I have no idea. It's probably affordable. I don't think it's we probably could do it.
Let's do it together.
Let's do it. Let's and but I think it's a great idea, and so now they have a stakeholder group that they know are crypto wallet owners. So that's a specific area of people who have access to all kinds of Web3. So I don't know if they have new plans to do different things, but it's kind of like I think, again, a beautiful story of, the kiss and love and people who have blockchain technology in their heart.
That's a lovely story. How do you think, just guessing, how would Mr. Klimt feel now to see what's happening to his artwork afterwards?
Oh, interesting. Because I'm not an art historian, so I actually don't know his story. I hope he would be super happy that even more people get to contribute to, and also this contributes to the museum, who has a beautiful collection of other artworks as well. So it's a part of keeping that legacy going as well. So hopefully he would be happy.
I think he would.
I think he would be happy. Yeah.
Should we move on to then, you mentioned the community element and what the tokens and actually enable more than just ownership. Maybe touch a little bit about social tokens or the community side of it. Any good examples that bring to mind related to social tokens?
Social tokens. Of course, the Klimt is a kind of social token. What did I have?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm drawing a blank.
Drawing blank too.
I was maybe thinking about the RAC social token project that they raised huge amount of money for their project, but I think we can, Mr. Editor there, skip this part.
No social tokens.
No social tokens.
Yeah, no social tokens.
Drawing blank. Well, we can talk about the community side in general, like a broad.
So with Hanna and Yara, we'll tackle the community side.
Okay, all right.
If that's something that I think will fit into this as well, continue
Did
with the
UNICEF
KISS.
ever do any kind of social tokenization? They had all kinds of NFT ideas, but I'm not sure if they did.
Well, I think in general, like that, there's so many opportunities, like the different type of charities, like for fundraising or people to participate, and combining these different things. Like you have the DAOs. DAOs are these kind of community organizations. Just let's disregard the kind of acronym for a while, but it's really kind of a new type of a digital organization, digital way of getting together and with some kind of common purpose. And again, I've spoken with some of the Finnish charities. They're not yet there, but I'm very curious that again, this type of using a token or NFT or any these type of would be a great way of doing fundraising. We could give money for good causes, and also creating this community around it that people could in a new ways to participate. Goes back to that we have the new generation, which is more, of course, digitally anyway oriented, so they would probably find it easy to kind of adapt into it, or they don't need to adapt. They would be just native there. But again, I think there's lots of cool opportunities to be explored. Again, it hasn't really happened yet, but I think over the coming years, for sure, will start to happen when the kind of underlying bits and pieces infrastructure matures. It will be easier. You don't have the kind of any technical barriers. The usability issues will disappear at some point. And,
One cool use case that I've heard came from Ukraine, actually, when the war started. Then the local artists were thinking like, okay, the galleries are gone. Like there's no revenue coming, no salaries coming in. What can we do? So they pulled together an NFT collection, use that to fundraise and just help their local communities in Ukraine during the war.
Right.
And that's pretty cool, impactful, helping a real life case.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think we'll see more of those. Hopefully not the war, but
hopefully step away from that soon. Yeah.
Good. Let me see. We could switch to more of that future looking ahead side of things. how do you see Web3 now in few years? What's still missing maybe? Like where are we now at?
Are you asking us, do we know what we don't know?
Exactly. But now there's no wrong answers.
There's no wrong. You're right. Yeah. You go first.
I can start. I think a little bit what I mentioned earlier is that the infrastructure is still not that great, and I mean like the just like the usability, the user experience, interoperability. Exactly. So the first thing, like you of course, in order to like store your NFTs or collectibles or any even the cryptocurrencies, you need a wallet, right? Which is and they're getting better, but the usability is still there's a kind of a threshold if you are new into this world, and most people are. And then of course, because it's such a new market, there's so many of these positively kind of competing solutions, different blockchains, but of course, if you come as a kind of a new into this world, you have Solana, Ethereum, many others, and the interoperability is not there, and it's hard to navigate. It's hard to navigate. So, in order to really kind of make the breakthrough, I think these type of technical barriers will need to disappear, to be in the background. You don't need to really care whether you are running or your collection is on Solana or Ethereum or any other technology platform. The way we actually consume today our iPhones or Androids, we don't really need to. It's very smooth experience. So this needs to happen. How many years? I don't know. A few years. I think it's getting better all the time. Maybe the industry could also put more focus on that. I think it will be very important. And also, I think we will start to see, in good and bad, that the kind of traditional companies that are kind of king of the hills of the current digital world entering this space more and more.
Yeah.
And of course, what they are very good is really polishing this user experience. I mean, I don't know whether Apple will enter, but I'm sure at some point, companies like Apple that are very much obsessed with the user experience will enter the stage and will be very good in the user experience. There is some issues, like I mentioned earlier, that if the ownership or the power is very much centralized in this world as well, that's not that great. But in terms of getting the user experience fixed much better, I think we're going to need, the industry, Web3 will need help from the ones that are very good at that.
For sure. And it's a very interesting philosophical contradiction between freedom and regulation. And of course, we started even at the beginning of, the first internet was, freedom of information. And then, of course, you need the big guys because they have the money to actually build it into something that makes sense. So interoperability means less freedom, a little bit more regulation, but it's easier to use. So, you have to give a little to get a little.
Exactly. That's a nice way to frame it.
Yeah.
And once that usability and interface becomes so easy that you don't even know you're using blockchain or Web3, then it becomes interesting. There are small kind of experience I see in the, let's say, music industry and ticketing. Sure. You have your VIP tickets that live on blockchain. You don't, the user doesn't even know that it's on blockchain. Yeah. But then that's kind of using the technology in the background, but Web2 in the front. And those work quite nicely and prevent all the fraudulent tickets and whatnot. So that's one.
That's a good use case, actually.
Yeah. I think Ticketmaster has created millions of NFTs, and people don't even know it.
Of course,
and they should not. But it's again,
that's how mostly it should be. That we shouldn't know what technologies uses.
No,
we just
we should not really care. End of the day. End of the day. Yeah. As long as the kind of the basic principles are there. That again goes back that. the ownership. I know that I have the ownership rights, and if I want to transfer the ownership in this digital world, I can actually do it, and we can have the transaction, and we can, with the blockchain, of course, it can be verified. It's there. It can't be kind of changed by somebody else. So these are very kind of fundamental and super important. Again, if we don't get this right, it doesn't look that rosy to me.
Well, how about just moving on to those really concrete, practical tips? If there's somebody in the audience now thinking about, okay, NFTs, I don't know, like, what is this thing? Where to start? How would you guide these people? Like, where to start? How to choose your wallet or chain? Like, help.
Well, how I started, because I am a humanist 100%. I am not a technology person at all. So how I started was, first of all, reading up all that I could read. It's only been 3 years, so reading everything that I could. And then getting into the discussions that are people are very open and they want to have discussions. And even I didn't feel like a dum-dum getting into the discussion. So find people, talk to them. And if you are not technically inclined, like I'm not, outsourced to technology. I mean, there are companies and people who want to do it. They might be individuals, they might be DAOs, they might be small companies. But so I would keep to, find my passion, what it is that I want to do or want to accomplish, and then talk to people about the idea, and then find someone who can help you with the technology. Unless you're a techie, and then of course, I don't know. Yeah, then you can, but you don't have to do everything on your own. People are, especially in the technology side, I think they're super happy to discuss and also dispute. So you can have some really good discussions about, it doesn't make any sense, and you might still be right. But I would find the technology people and start from that.
That's a good tip. There's a lot of really high quality agencies actually also in Finland who do really, really good execution projects. So talent is here.
And it's so funny. Also, we've been talking about the community. You might actually find the community through the technology. So if you have an idea of I want to create this on Web3 and I don't know who would use it, you might find them through technology partners. We found communities through Highlight, through the Zora platform that we didn't know before we started talking to the people in those technologies.
Yeah. So being kind of curious, getting out there, just asking a lot of questions, that helps. Yeah. Anything that we haven't talked about yet that should earn the place on this episode?
Well, I think Johanna put it really, really well. I think it's just be curious, and brave is a strong word. You don't even do brave. Just try it, like I did myself with the first NFT. I managed to do. I'm not a techie person at all, so I managed to do it. And actually, it's much easier today. So the threshold is not that big, but. What's your passion? Go with your passion.
Find your passion.
Find your passion in this, and there's so many different avenues to take. Whether it's to, hey, I want to create a collection here, or I want to be part of a community, or I want to run a gallery in a new way. I want to actually build a community around my gallery, or I want my physical gallery to have a kind of a digital twin for that, and so just. Try to find your avenue, and then you will come up with the people that are like-minded, and they will help you, and you can start to create things together. There will be bumps in the road. It's as always. So it's that's of course something to expect. There's it's not of course easy always to be the pioneer, but part of being the pioneer is also it's super fun.
Yeah. And I think whatever you decide to do, you will find out that someone else is thinking about something similar, and it will be a joy to have that discussion of, oh, you thought about that, and I thought about this, and could we collaborate, or maybe we shouldn't collaborate, but let's keep in touch. People are doing such fun, interesting, and important things right now, so just get out there and do it.
I love that. And one thing that now sparks my mind is that what if you are an artist in, let's say, Rovaniemi, and you have a small gallery or just hosting something on your living room, but suddenly with Web3 and with that access, you can get global audience, which is pretty cool and hopefully rewarding as well.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Quite discussions. Great insights. Thank you, Johanna. Thank you, Heikki.
Thank you, Sointu.
Thank you both. Thank you, everybody. I think we are wrapping up our first episode of Business Models. Hope you got really, really good insights and inspirations and concrete examples to learn from after this episode. And that's a wrap. Next episode, we will dive into sustainability. And could Web3 be the solution? So tune in.